Face it, Trumplicans. Trumpism is the credo of losers. As Kevin Williamson helpfully points out at nationalreview.com this morning, Trumpism is a vicious and reductive worldview. Let me explain what I mean. Kevin Williamson's mother was a poor sport, as he writes today. High school football, as played in West Texas, isn't exactly what you would call gentlemanly, but there is a code of conduct. If you sack the quarterback, you offer him a hand up afterward. If a player on the opposing team gets injured, you take a knee, and you applaud if he leaves the field on his own 2 feet. Mrs. Williamson, his mother, was scandalized by this. She cheered injuries, of children in this case, and believed that the coaches were doing their charges a disservice by teaching them to play the game like gentlemen rather than playing to injure, or in other words, rather than being thugs. She was a partisan of the strategic intentional foul, putting a bounty out on an opposing player, a star player, to take them out so that you have a better chance of winning. The point, as she saw it, was to win, and she was, this is the universally shared belief of this type, absolutely sure that the other team was just as unscrupulous as she'd have had her team be. She believed very strongly that Jesus had opinions regarding the outcome of high school football games and bingo tournaments, but remained unfortunately foggy on that do unto others business. Golden rule. The depth and intensity of Mrs. Williamson's sense of persecution was comical. On those rare occasions when they went to a restaurant, her family that is, she would complain that the staff put too much ice in her drink in an effort to skimp on the tea or Dr. Pepper. "That's how they get you," she would say. That was her favorite phrase. That's how they get you. On another trip to the same restaurant, Furr's Cafeteria, if you know the area, which I don't, this is Kevin Williamson's piece, an anecdote, she complained that the staff was cheating her out of her rightful portion of ice. Too much ice, too little ice, it didn't matter. That's how they get you. Now, if you believe that the world is out to get you, that the world is in fact organized by powerful, shadowy forces as a conspiracy against your interests, when the reality is the world doesn't know who you are and wouldn't give 2 leaves off the fig tree if it did, then it follows naturally that you are justified in doing unto others before they do unto you. The world's victims feel themselves entitled to do what they can, whatever is necessary, against the goblins who torment them. In the case of the Williamson family, this meant being absolute hell on motels. Enraged that the $39 rate advertised on the sign turned out to be $56 after taxes, "That's how they get you!" Mrs. Williamson would loot motel rooms of everything that was not nailed down. Soap, toiletries, of course, but also all the towels, all the washcloths, all the ashtrays, etc. Not the bed linens, though. They were Methodists. If you're wondering why they invented those weird little thief-proof motel hangers, because who steals hangers? The answer is people like the Williamsons. Never mind the J.C. Penney installment plan, their house was furnished in a much thriftier fashion. She didn't think of this as stealing, she thought of it as evening the score. Well, Williamson couldn't help but think about her when he heard from an enraged Trump supporter who was displeased with his characterization of Trump's stance on immigration. In other words, that on this or any other issue, Trump will say literally anything at any moment if he believes that will advance his interests. But Trumpkin did not believe that he was wrong in that characterization, but that he was hypocritical. What about you, huh? You don't say whatever advances your interest? In other words, he couldn't defend Trump, so he just attacked the Trump critic. Change the subject, in other words. Because that's all they've got. And in the process, it turns them more and more into clones of their orange-hued demigod. The implicit belief expressed by those sentences is the creed of losers everywhere. No one has any principles. No one tries to do the right thing. No one tries to uphold any standards of conduct. Everyone is only in it to win, to get what he wants. It isn't that the world does not provide some evidence supporting that view, but it also provides evidence for the contrary view as well. Again, as I say, it's not that the world is out to get you. It's that the world doesn't give a rat's ass about you one way or the other. It doesn't even know you exist. And winning purely for personal selfish reasons, not standing for anything, not standing for any worldview, not standing for any ideal. Now, you know how I've said that Donald Trump is an amalgam of Bill Clinton and Barack Obama? Well, here we go. Bill Clinton was, so far as I can tell, the first American president who was actively admired for his dishonesty. Democrats, and not only they, loved to bask in Sick Willie's cleverness, to watch him get himself into jams and get himself out again, making his opponents look like fools. You remember that. Oh, yes, I remember it well. Of course, Clinton betrayed his family and betrayed his supporters, betrayed the country that entrusted him with the highest office in the land. But he won! You're starting to see the parallel here between Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. This is what is going on in the mind of Donald Trump when he praises Vladimir Putin. Or Putin, however you want to pronounce it that way. Sure, he's a brute, he's a murderer, he's a dictator, but look at those poll numbers. That is why in the minds of Trumplicans everywhere, anything Trump does can be spun into gold. Because supposedly, he's winning, except in the polls, which he doesn't talk about anymore. See, Trumplicans celebrate in Trump what communists saw in Bill Clinton. A cudgel with which to bludgeon one's enemies, real or perceived. Though I expect that winning as its own justification is going to look a lot less persuasive to the right come November 8th. Principles, standards of personal conduct, moral codes, honor. From that point of view, these are only participation trophies for the insufficiently ruthless. That this attitude should prevail so strongly among the world's losers, the aggrieved, those who lament endlessly that the deck is stacked against them and their kind, constitutes a kind of inverted Nietzschean ethic. Not that this would ever occur to them, or that they even know who Nietzsche was. Kevin Williamson's football team was not, as it turns out, very good at football. They didn't do a lot of winning. They didn't do any at all, according to Williamson. But in retrospect, that probably doesn't matter very much because they were out there for another reason. And Trumplicans, they're going to wind up in the same place, only without any honor, without any self-respect. Losers, and deservedly so.